Hey everybody, my name's AJ Morris, and I'm glad you're back with us to talk about Gutenberg blocks. This week we're going to be talking about GenerateBlocks, which is currently in alpha, but I thought it would be a fun place to take a look at a new block plugin that is starting to make the way we think about creating blocks a bit different. So GenerateBlocks is brought to you by the folks over here at GeneratePress. Tom Osborne leading the charge there. We'll be taking a look at GenerateBlocks without this GeneratePress plugin, but if this is something that is of interest to you, definitely check out GeneratePress as a theme as well. There's a free and paid version, and you can definitely get the benefits of using both. But today we'll be just using the 2020 theme. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And when you install GenerateBlocks, you will... All right, so before we get started, let's go back over to GenerateBlocks and talk just for a second about how to install it. Since GenerateBlocks is currently in an alpha stage, you'll need to come over here to GenerateBlocks.com, click on install, and then download the latest version. At the time of my recording, I'm at 1.0-alpha.2, so I'm still not in a beta testing time frame. I'm still using this in the alpha stages of the development. So just be careful of how you do that. Once you've downloaded GenerateBlocks, if you click on Plugins, Add New, and Upload inside of your WordPress install, you will go ahead and get that installed. So once you've done that, we can go back over to our site. And today we're going to be using the 2020 theme, as that's what we have used for all of our Gutenberg block reviews thus far. So we are using 2020. And we'll take a look at GenerateBlocks with it. So when you first get GenerateBlocks installed, you're going to come to this page, and you're going to see right off the top that there's really just a small collection of lightweight blocks that WordPress that you use to accomplish nearly anything. Now, what this really means is that they're taking a stance of really using the reusable blocks feature of the WordPress block editor. And instead of using, or rather creating a ton of blocks, like a pricing table block, a list block, a heading block, a paragraph block, a table block, all of this access, GenerateBlocks is saying, hey, you really only need 4 blocks. Go create what you want for that specific site, and then save it as a reusable block so that you can edit it on down the road. So you'll see that you only have 4 blocks. You have a container block that's really used for kind of the foundation of your content. So it's going to be the starting point for most things. Then you have a grid so that you can have simple and complex layouts. Think of it as dividing up a container into multiple rows and columns. You'll have a headline that allows you to do all sorts of headline settings. And then you have buttons. So you can have one or multiple buttons as you go through with that. So that is all there is. You can click Learn More on these, and you're going to jump over to what you can create with GenerateBlocks. So if you look at the GenerateBlocks homepage, you'll see some different options here. As you scroll through, you'll see all about the container, the grid, so you can see kind of what their ideas are in terms of what the grid will look like, what your headline block could look like, and some buttons. So that's all, and with that, let's go ahead and get started building a page with GenerateBlocks. So as always, I'm going to click on Pages, Add New, and we're going to just do GenerateBlocks And I'll go ahead and start by finding GenerateBlocks. Now, one thing I like that GenerateBlocks does is there's a way to position your block section in this drop-down area here. And GenerateBlocks puts it right down up at the top. So you have your most used, which are going to be all your core ones. If you're just getting started, in this case, this is a fresh new site, so I've not used any blocks, so that's why these are in here. But the minute you start using GenerateBlocks, they'll start showing up in there under the most used. So I'm going to go ahead and create a container, and you'll see it pops in a container. I have some options to do wide or full width. We'll go ahead and do full width for a second and just start taking a look at what we can do with this container block. So over on the right hand side, if we just focus over here for a bit, we'll see that we've got default, tablet, and mobile, which gives us the ability to set some settings differently depending on which device you're being used. Very handy feature there. You have the inner container, which is this gray area. So you can see it's kind of centered itself among the page and is what they're calling contained. If you do full width, it goes the full width of your container or your page. When you do have a container width or inner container is set to contain, you can set the container width. So if you wanted 960 or 700, maybe you're doing something really thin, you had that option here, and as you make those changes, you'll see this gray area go wide or small. So that's your container width. Now you have pixels. This presumably means that maybe you could select other options. So maybe they introduce EMs or other units to select. You'll see that here as we go further along in looking at this container block. So the container block is divided up into specific places that you might need to go. So for example, typography, here's all your typography settings. Now, one thing I have found, especially in playing with this on GeneratePress, is that it's going to inherit all of your theme choices really well. So when you pair GeneratePress with GenerateBlocks, it's a much more symbiotic relationship between the plugin and the theme. So your blocks are all designed really through GeneratePress, and you can override some of those settings here under advanced typography. But for the most part, all you have to do is select your typography here. Do you want it? What's the alignment you want? What's the weight and do you want to transform the text any? So spacing, it's setting some spacing. You could have a minimum height. You could have padding, margin, border size, border radius. You have all of those as options here. Colors, you have background color, text color, link color, hover, and border color. Excuse me. One thing I would like to see in here is if I wanted to do a drop shadow of a container. Presumably these settings are all the same for every container block I put into my page. I might want to do a drop shadow, and I can't see the option to do that in here. I've got border radius and border size, but I don't have a shadow option, and so I'd love to see that included. That said, there is an advanced section that would allow you to add a class or an ID, and you could put that CSS in your theme. So moving along from spacing and colors, we have background gradient. So if you want to use a gradient, you turn it on. Select your color 1 and 2. Set your direction. You can see that kind of setting there. You can set your stop position. So maybe you want this one to stop at 40% and this second color to stop at 10%. You can see how you can get that great line. So if you did 90%, you get a nice little gradient. Maybe you do 670, and you can see that there. So if you did do something where it's going to give you that line, you can start to tweak it, and you can see what type of colors you're able to do. So gradients are a pretty good option there. You have a background image, so you could upload your background image. I happen to have an image pretty handy, so let me grab that here. All right, so here's an example Adobe stock image of a bike rider. So we could put that in, and then we could also add an overlay. So we do have an option of an overlay. When we do that, we just need to select the background color up here and set some sort of a transparent option so the image shows through. Since I'm doing that, I'm also going to go to minimum height under spacing and just put 1000 pixels, so that way you can kind of see that's what that image would look like inside of a container. So that's the background image. Then you have your advanced. So what I like about advanced is it allows me to select which type of tag I want the output of this container. So for example, if I'm making a header or I'm making a footer, I could use that. If I'm making a section, these are all HTML5 tags, and I have the ability to do that in here. As I mentioned, I also have the element ID and CSS classes that I can add in here. This is to help target any JavaScript or custom CSS that you might write, especially if you're looking at handing this site over to a client. You might want to put some controls in on CSS classes, and then have them just include those classes in a specific spot. Finally, you have Z-index under advanced, so you can set that Z-index here. That's a handy feature when you get into many different containers on top of each other and creating a look that you want. That is something that you have the ability to do. So consider changing that Z-index as appropriate. Finally, you have documentation. If you want to visit the documentation for the container, you have that right here, and you can scroll through, pretty much see everything that I had that I was doing. So that is the container block. Now inside this container block, I'm going to go ahead and continue adding more generate blocks. So the next one I'm going to add is a grid, and you will see that I now have that option to include a grid. So my grid is basically 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, 2, 3 columns, or 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. So different types of layouts I want. So let's do something simple as just 50% left and right. You have that option, and then you see this piece down here. This third option is really just to give me is to kind of continue on outside of the container. If you click on the block navigation, you'll see that here's the container. The grid is right here, so container 1, container 2, and you have settings within those containers. So if I click into the container of the grid and I do this left column, I can do things like change the background color to white. And I could set if I go to spacing, I could set the border size or even just the border radius to say, let's go 10 pixels, let's sync it across. So now I've got 10 pixels around, and maybe I want to include some padding inside of this white box. So I could go, 20 we'll do that 20 all the way around. And now you see I've got some padding around this to really create some sort of an element here. So that's some options that you can do with the container inside of a grid inside of another container. I'm going to back out this block, this container a second, and start over. And let's just assume we want to do something simple, like we want to add a headline. So we can go to GenerateBlocks, we can go to headline, we can type our headline. So we have some sort of a text here. You'll notice in the headline over here on the right, under the block settings, typography is immediately opened, and you'll see the element is paragraph. That means that you can use this headline block as paragraph text, or you could use it as a heading element as well. So you could do, an H1 or an H2. And what's great about this is for the most part, it's going to take on whatever settings are set on the theme. So if the theme has an H2 element set, the typography is all going to match your other H2s. If I go to an H1, for example, it's going to be nice and big, and it's going to match, in this case, the title of the page, because that's what an H1 is. So we'll go ahead and move this down to an H2, and I can choose to center, left, right align. That's all great. I can add another headline in here. This is the paragraph, right? Let's just open up lorem ipsum and grab, we'll just grab some text. So I just want one paragraph. So we'll add that in. So here's that little paragraph. That might be too long. Let's just go to there. We want to add maybe another image over here. So we can use just the image block that comes with WordPress. So you can grab your upload, or you can drag an image over. So here's another bike related image that looks pretty good. I want to add a button though. That's kind of a common layout here. So we'll go to GenerateBlocks and button. We'll just say learn more. So there's my learn more button. I might want to add some spacing on the margin top to just kind of give the text some breathing room. So I'm going to go ahead and just publish this a second just to show you what we're looking at. And here is that that container with the grid in place. Now, one thing I'm noticing is it's not full width, and this may just be as simple as changing the template to a full width template in 2020. So let's try that. So here's a full width template. The background image is still not going full width. So let's kind of take a look. Take a look in here just to see what's going on. So here's that inside container. Here's the container. So I might not have this container set right. We'll try wide width, see if that works. And that seemed to keep it the same. So let's go ahead and move it to full width now. Update, and we'll reload. Doesn't seem to make some changes. So just word to the wise, GenerateBlocks, because it's in alpha, may not work with every theme quite right. And so you can get away with that by just going and installing GeneratePress. It's a free theme as well. And maybe we'll actually do that right now just to check this out in its entirety. So go to add new for themes. do GeneratePress. So we'll install it. Now we're going to see a big drastic change on the theme itself. For example, you're going to see background and all sorts of other changes. But if we go back to our page, we can edit the page, and under the document tab, you'll have a layout section. If you scroll down to page builder container, you can do full width. And if you go sidebars to no sidebars, we'll go ahead and update. That'll look a lot better. So here we go. Now we're in full width mode. You'll notice as well is that the text change is made based on the text of heading typography changes in the theme. The other thing that we can do with GenerateBlocks, or GeneratePress rather, is choose to hide or show the page title. So if you hide the page title, it'll actually get rid of that section and bring it all the way up to the top, which really makes this piece be a great way to take this container and turn it into a reusable hero block. So you could do that by just going to clicking these three buttons, click add to reusable blocks, call this hero block, and then save it. Now that that's saved, it becomes a reusable block that we can use anywhere. So if we wanted to add a new page, we can hide that, for instance. We can go to scroll down to the bottom to where it says reusable, click on that hero block. Here it is. We can edit the block, or we could convert it to a regular block. Once we convert it to a regular block, we can go in, make our changes. So hero headline, for example, maybe we want to change the color, text color to white. We can do that. The other thing that you could do is if you are on the container, you could change your text color to white so that it applies to everything. When we go ahead and publish this page now, you'll see, now of course we have to go back in. This is, I would have set up GenerateBlocks to be a little bit different. Let's go to content no container and full width page builder container. But now we get more of what we're looking for, right? Which is white text. It's easier to read. If we go back to the other one, you'll still see it's still black or that dark gray text. So a great way to use a reusable block and then can change it to a regular block so that you can make the necessary changes to it. All right, so the last thing I wanted to do on here was just talk a little bit more about the button block, as the button block is not one that I talked a lot about. So once you're in the button, you just make sure you're in the button, and the block options over here shows that you're in the button. You can add another button by clicking the little plus sign right here. Add a button gives you another button as the option. And when you're in here, you can choose to fill horizontal space. You could stack vertically. You have those options. So on mobile, for example, maybe you want to do the stack vertically. Maybe on tablet, you want to fill the horizontal space just because of the way that it's going to look on tablet. You can also add some margin between the two so that they're not right on top of each other. All you have to do is go right here into right and just say 20 pixels. I am sorry, I am not in a block. I'm actually on the button, or I'm in the buttons block, not on a button itself. So if I'm on a button itself, I go to spacing. I can go to 20 pixels and provide some spacing in here. You can also click on the button itself and you can change the colors of the button. So maybe in a secondary button, I actually want it to be transparent, but I want a border color of white with a text color of white. I need to put in a border size, so let's do that. Let's say 3, or maybe even just 1. Border with maybe a 10 radius to get a little bit. If I want really rounded corners, 100 really works well to get that kind of a look. You can also do more options, like you can change the color on hover to maybe be some sort of a red color. So you can do that. You can even set it to be a little transparent to kind of go through. So you got some design options there. The one thing I would love it to do though is when you do add a border, little nitpicky thing for me is that this doesn't have a border, so the buttons are off a little bit. Easy fix. Just come in here, put your border size, and change the border color to even just transparent, just so it doesn't get seen. If you have trouble with it, you can always go to the same color that your background is, and that will at least keep those buttons the same size. One thing I'd also like to see in the buttons is the ability to do drop shadows or things like that. They're not in here either. You've got background gradients, you've got icons that you can put in. Those are all nice pieces, but I would like to see, like, I've seen it in other Gutenberg block plugins, like a drop down that just says, small, medium, or large button, and it's already got some pre-designed elements in it, whether it's spacing or text sizes. All the typography changes are made. I would love to see something like that in there, but that's okay. We can leave it at that, and if we update and reload, we'll see the two buttons are here now, where on this one it's still just the one button. So that's GenerateBlocks. I think it's a fun 4 block plugin that we'll be seeing a lot more of. It really, at least right now, really helps to be using GeneratePress as the theme. As I mentioned, the GeneratePress theme itself is free. The premium features are going to give you more customizable settings that live inside of the customizer, and it's definitely worth it. They've got a really good price point of $50 for unlimited websites, 1 year of support and updates, and then you get a 40-day renewal discount. So take a look at GeneratePress if you're looking for a new project and you want to test a new theme that really is going to kind of take you to that land of meshing the theme, a plugin, and the new WordPress block editor. I think GeneratePress is onto something here, and I'm really excited to see where GenerateBlocks itself goes to by the time it's released at the 1.0 release. So thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, subscribe over on the YouTube channel. If you're on the YouTube channel, make sure you bounce back over to iThemes.com, where we're doing these videos every week, talking about the WordPress block editor and Gutenberg itself. And I would love to have you join in on that conversation. So thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you have a great rest of your week.